Each of those numbers are much more than numbers. Their families wondering what happened to their child. Their communities still asking how someone can be there one day and gone the next. They represent children who never came home. These 3 high-profile Arizona cases are known around the country: Baby Gabriel, Mikelle Biggs, and Jhessye Shockley. We decided to investigate these cases ourselves. New interviews, new theories, and even new leads. This is True Crime Arizona: Vanished Children. Where is Baby Gabriel? It was the question everyone in Arizona was asking after Christmas of 2009. His mom upped and left with the baby to Texas, leaving his dad in the dark. First, she said she killed Baby Gabriel, and then she changed her story and said she gave him away to an anonymous couple at a park. He's still missing, but new leads and information have come to light.
Where are you? Where's Gabriel?
I killed him this morning.
What?
I killed him this morning.
No, you didn't.
Yes, I did.
Where are you?
I'm going to tell you right now.
That was December of 2009. It was a stark difference from how Sandy Peters remembers her nephew, Logan McQuarrie, and his then-girlfriend, Elizabeth Johnson, just months prior.
What was your impression of Elizabeth?
I liked her.
She loved the family they had created. Their blue-eyed baby boy, Gabriel, was just 6 months old when Sandy met him for the first time.
Just the happiest, most delightful little baby you ever saw.
But as fall turned to winter, their love began to fall apart. Sandy knew there was tension, but was happy to be able to spend Christmas with Logan and Gabriel, or so she thought.
Logan went over to the trailer, looked in the windows. Gabriel's room, all of his stuff was gone, and he couldn't find Elizabeth anywhere.
Or Gabriel?
Right, or Gabriel.
Turns out she wasn't in Arizona anymore. She was in San Antonio, Texas.
He came running up with his phone and he said, "You've got to listen to this." It was a phone conversation he had just gotten off of with Elizabeth, and she said she killed Gabriel.
I killed him this morning.
What?
I killed him this morning.
Authorities wouldn't find Elizabeth in Texas. They tracked her to Miami, Florida. When she was arrested, she wasn't with Gabriel.
She wouldn't tell the police where he was. She actually told Logan that she killed the baby and put him in a bag and then in a dumpster. But then she changed her story later and said that she gave Gabriel away to an anonymous couple in a park in Texas.
Pat McReynolds was a reporter for CBS 5 at the time.
I was a journalist for 25 years. This is the only case that still sticks with me. Still gets me emotional, gets me angry.
Elizabeth told investigators she went to San Antonio to meet an anonymous couple to give baby Gabriel to. She told detectives it was all coordinated by Jack and Tammy Smith. The Smiths would end up playing a key part in the case. Authorities learned Elizabeth had formed a relationship with Tammy, and that Tammy and Jack had been trying to adopt Gabriel from her. Tammy even forging custody documents to help. Elizabeth told police her plan was to meet this unknown couple at a park at 10 a.m. for the exchange. Texas attorney Tim Maloney gets involved, and this is where he says evidence gets bizarre.
Phone records. The phone records to me are the absolute key to this case. The flurry of activity on December 27th around 10 a.m. when she was supposed to meet. A minute before, a minute after. I think I counted 27 phone calls.
Most of those calls were going to Tammy and Jack Smith and the Smiths' other family members. But Jack and Tammy were not hiding at all. In fact, they were going public on news shows of all kinds, claiming they knew nothing about Elizabeth's alleged meetup with this couple.
Do you know where Gabriel is?
Absolutely not.
They have nothing on me.
Elizabeth was arrested, charged with kidnapping, child abuse, and custodial interference. Yet still, she would not say where Gabriel was.
Tell the court, please, who you gave custody of your child to.
I work very much means I would.
Nobody knew if the baby was dead or alive.
Was Elizabeth Johnson capable of killing her son? Yes. Was she capable of doing it and compartmentalizing it to where she could lie to a judge and lie to a jury? Yes. Yes. Was she spiteful enough? Yes.
Elizabeth would ultimately only be convicted of unlawful imprisonment, custodial interference, and conspiracy to commit custodial interference, and serve 5 years in prison. Who else but Tammy Smith would call her up while she was behind bars?
You know that the baby's okay? I mean, do you know he's okay?
Yes, definitely I do.
Okay.
Tammy asks Elizabeth about her original message to Logan.
Did you text him that you put the baby in a bag and suffocated him and put him in the dumpster?
Yes, I did text that.
You what?
Yes, I did text that, but it's not true.
You can just hear them going back and forth at each other, trying to get any type of culpability off of themselves. And so it was very hard to determine what the truth was.
You set all this up, and all I did was do what you told me to do.
And that's a lie, and we have solid proof, and the police already know that.
I never called them. You called them. It was all set up through you. I did everything you told me to do.
Oh, you are a liar.
Tammy was eventually arrested too, but only served 30 days behind bars for forgery and conspiracy to commit custodial interference. Both Sandy and Tim felt while they were desperately trying to find Gabriel possibly alive, the San Antonio Police Department was only focused on finding his body after Elizabeth's first confession of killing him.
We were told, you can't be doing interviews, you can't be talking to people about this because you'll be interfering with our investigation and we will come after you. I especially felt extremely threatened and afraid.
No tips of interest came in for a while, until April of 2012, when Sandy's daughter-in-law met a woman in San Antonio who claimed she knew the couple that adopted Gabriel from Elizabeth and saw them with the boy.
The day after she sold them to the people we know, we ran into the people and they said, yeah, this is Gabriel.
They proceeded to have a 20-minute long conversation that this woman says she saw Gabriel after he went missing, that she knew the couple who Gabriel was with. She knew their first names, and the first name of the boy was Steve, and the girl was Shalinda.
Authorities were able to track down the Steve she was talking about, but he claimed he didn't know who Gabriel was and didn't have him. Sandy is still searching for answers on that.
If there's anybody out there who knows Steve and or Shalinda, even somebody who was with Steve, the name was similar to that, and even if they didn't really have anything to do with Gabriel getting taken from San Antonio, maybe they know something.
He's known worldwide as Baby Gabriel, but Gabriel would now be 12 years old. There's hope as technology evolves that Gabriel might find out who he is sooner rather than later, and maybe all on his own.
You would think that Gabriel at some point might do 23andMe or one of these, genetic testing companies and find out by accident.
Wouldn't that be crazy? We actually have thought about that. So Logan's working with the different, there's several of them out there now, opposed to just the Ancestry.com, but he is working, trying to get his DNA out there just in case that happens.
Elizabeth lives a free life now. She's never admitted who she gave Gabriel to or where he is.
At this point, he would be able to read and write, and what would you want him to hear from you?
Oh, that we have never stopped loving him or caring about him, or we've never stopped looking. He's always welcome, he'll always be part of us, and he's got lots of hugs waiting for him when we find him.
Both the FBI and the Tempe Police Department declined an interview. Elizabeth Johnson did not respond to me and blocked me on Facebook after I asked to speak with her.
Coming up on True Crime Arizona, vanished children.
Something felt off.
Mikelle Biggs was riding her bike 1 minute. The next minute, nowhere to be found.
I didn't know anything was going to change in that moment.
A decades-long search for her abductor, still an open case after 22 years.
This is the largest missing persons case in the history of Arizona.
What happened to Mikelle Biggs? After the break. You're watching a True Crime Arizona special, Vanished Children.
Gone in 90 seconds. 11-year-old Mikelle Biggs was out riding her bike, waiting for the ice cream man 1 minute. The next minute, she's nowhere to be seen. Police believe she was abducted, but she's never been found. The last person to see her alive was her little sister, who returns to the crime scene with us. She says this case isn't over.
The lighting right now, like it's very blue. That is one of those things I remember very distinctly from that night.
The memories come flooding back.
I was standing over there in that vicinity. She was right here, and she would do like a smaller circle and then like a bigger circle. Her blonde hair in the sunset was very like flowing behind her. I didn't realize how precious that moment was. And it is very much like a movie scene.
One glance back over her shoulder to cross the road, etched in Kimber Biggs' mind forever.
I didn't know anything was gonna change in that moment.
Carol and Mikhail.
Just let her come home.
We wanted to talk to people that normally traverse through the area.
The sun set on a winter night.
January 2nd, 1999. A call came out for a missing child. We headed that way.
11-year-old Mikelle Biggs had disappeared while riding her bike and waiting for the ice cream truck. Mesa PD Detective Steve Barry was part of the search.
All the officers going up and down alleyways.
Mikelle's little sister, 9-year-old Kimber, had gone inside for less than 2 minutes.
I yelled from the driveway, Mikelle, all annoyed. And then that's when I turned and I looked, and I didn't see her down there, so I looked the other way and I was like, where's she?
Then she saw the bike in the street.
I just saw like something and the tire on it was still spinning. I just remember feeling just off. Something felt off.
Her mom was sure Mikelle was just at the neighbor's house.
I walked to their house and they were like, she's not here.
The neighbors helped her look around and found the 2 quarters Mikelle had been holding for the ice cream truck on the ground. Kimber went back to her house and locked eyes with her mom.
And I said, we can't find Mikelle. And her face went white.
A massive search was underway from home to home in the East Valley to the middle of the desert.
It's just not in her nature to just leave like that.
I don't know at what point I heard the word kidnapped, but I really didn't grasp that concept before that night.
Search dogs picked up Mikelle's scent, but lost it right by where she was last seen. Investigators believe she was abducted and quickly put into a car that sped away.
You miss her a lot?
Now in her 30s, being back here, right where it happened, Kimber can remember the thoughts in her head.
Was someone waiting, or, did someone literally stumble upon a child alone?
24 hours turned to 48 hours.
I want to say it was, one of the detectives or policemen talking to one or both of my parents. I remember sitting there and realizing that they were saying that we have a 3-day window before they're going to assume she's dead.
Days became weeks. Weeks became months. Months turned to years. And then, a lead.
Dee Blaylock lived in the same neighborhood as the Biggs. He was a registered sex offender.
Enter Mesa PD Detective Teresa Van Gelder.
This is the largest missing persons case in the history of Arizona. This entire wall that you see here contains file folders all dealing with this specific case.
Much of that wall, information on Dee Blaylock.
He apparently was at candlelight vigils and stuff, but it was when he attacked his neighbor, that's when he got on the radar.
In fact, it's that attack that Blaylock is spending the rest of his life in prison for.
He attempted to murder her and left her for dead. So again, now he was back on our radar that he was active and he was violent.
His wife had given police an alibi for him on the night Mikelle went missing.
In 2018, I went and spoke with him. He still denies any kind of involvement.
Detective Van Gelder wasn't the only one to go speak to him in prison.
Your parents went to talk to him in jail. They believed that he did it. What did they recall in that conversation they had with him?
I believe before they met, they exchanged some letters, and he more or less made it seem like he would tell them what happened. And then they got there and he was like, no, I'm innocent.
Is it your professional opinion that he is involved in her disappearance?
I think he is our our most likely investigative lead.
Do you think he did it?
I used to believe that he did. Now I have questioned that simply for the fact of just knowing everything that goes on in the world, you know, human trafficking in general.
The Biggs family does not believe Mikelle is still alive, but they do think she may be nearby, and so do police.
Do you think she's still in Arizona, whether she is alive or dead?
Yes. Again, based on the abduction, odds are that if she was killed, she was probably killed locally.
But neither detectives nor Kimber believe this is the end of the story.
I feel like nothing stays hidden forever. And, you know, nothing stays a secret. You know, we've always said somebody knows something.
That's all they need.
We absolutely need something new. We don't really care how or why it comes forward. We just need that little nugget of something.
The only way we're going to solve this would be is if we get somebody that gives a confession and leads us to her, whether it's her or her remains.
I think it comes down to finding her body.
Whoever took Mikelle robbed Kimber of her childhood, her safety, and her trust.
You kind of forced me to grow up in ways that no 9-year-old should have to grow up.
The last person to see Mikelle alive will be the last to give up.
I personally will not be satisfied until I know who did it and, justice is served.
If you have any information on Mikelle's disappearance or any new leads, please call the Mesa Police Department.
Coming up on True Crime Arizona, vanished children.
She was destined to be a superstar.
5-year-old Jhessye Shockley reported missing by her mother.
I knew what she had told the public and what she called and told the police, that was a lie.
A search for the little girl overshadowed by deceit.
Answers don't line up with logic.
A big question still remains.
Do you two believe Jhessye is in that landfill?
The Jesse Shockley case, after the break. You're watching a True Crime Arizona special, Vanished Children.
Forced to live in a closet for weeks. That's what investigators believe led to 5-year-old Jesse Shockley's death. Her mom would plead to the public to help find her baby, yet mom was the problem all along. Jhessye has never been found, but family and detectives believe they know where she is.
We took care of Jhessye for 4.5 years.
A decade of time doesn't make any of this easier for Lisa Vance.
Jhessye was a superstar. Yeah. And she was destined to be a superstar, but she was our superstar.
She was 5-year-old Jesse Shockley's auntie. Jesse's birth would come at an unsettling time. Her mom, Jhessye Hunter, was turning herself in for child abuse of Jesse's older siblings in California.
How extensive was the child abuse that you know of prior to Jhessye being born?
Jhessye deceived us all. She was allowing her husband to have sex with one of her children.
As disturbing as the crimes were, Jhessye managed to only spend 4.5 years in prison. She came back to Arizona and wanted Jesse back too, who was now 5 years old. Police showed up at Lisa's sister's door.
Either we could give Jhessye back to Jhessye, or the police was gonna place Jhessye in a foster home. So we ended up giving her back to Jhessye.
Jhessye wouldn't let her family see the kids much, but when they could, Lisa noticed Jesse's sparkle had dimmed. She knew something was wrong, and then came that awful day.
Hello, I need an officer at my house. I can't find my daughter.
October 11th, 2011, when Jhessye reported her daughter Jhessye missing from their Glendale apartment. Jhessye said while she was running errands, Jhessye walked outside and a stranger put her in the car. Things seemed off from the start.
Mom's telling a story of what occurred and how her child disappeared, but yet we're not getting tears out of Mom.
Retired Glendale PD Detective Roger Geisler knew this was only the beginning.
Answers don't line up with logic. And so when you have answers that don't line up with logic, you have to look deeper.
As Jhessye Hunter publicly spoke out,
somebody knows something. Somebody saw something.
And defended herself.
Do I look like I hurt my daughter? Do I look like I hurt my daughter?
Somebody else began speaking up too. Jesse's oldest sister, about what she saw inside the apartment.
Her mom didn't allow them to talk to her, and when her mom would leave them in the house alone, she would go in the closet and she would sneak and give baby Jhessye food and give her something to drink. And she told me that Jhessye looked like dead people.
Lisa wasn't buying Jhesse's act.
I knew what she had told the public and what she called and told the police, but that was a lie.
Police would find Jesse's blood in the closet. Jhessye was arrested, but only on child abuse charges. It was then that a key witness would come forward, a neighbor who had driven Jhessye to Tempe weeks earlier.
She described a lot of taking Jhessye on a road trip, to dispose or to sell some shoes in a suitcase, and how they drove to an apartment complex and disposed of this suitcase that may or may not have had an odor to it.
Investigators believed Jesse's body was inside, and Glendale PD Lieutenant Dave Medea launched a search unlike any other.
This was the longest landfill search in the history of Arizona for a body.
It's like a needle in a haystack.
5 months of searching, but no Jhessye. That didn't leave investigators hopeless, though. Jhessye was still arrested on first-degree murder. A no-body trial is difficult, but the prosecution wouldn't back down.
Next Wednesday is April 1st, Jesse Shockley's 9th birthday. But Jesse won't be celebrating this birthday. Jesse doesn't have birthdays anymore because she died at the age of 5 at the hands of her mother.
The most powerful testimony came from Jesse's sister, who was now 17 years old. Cameras weren't allowed to film her, but they were allowed to record her audio. She recalled Jesse's life inside that closet.
I went in there and she was crying. She was hurt, I guess. That's right.
How she was hurt?
She had black stuff coming out her eyes, like glue. And when she wanted me to take her to the bathroom, but she couldn't really walk that much, so he took her to the bathroom.
Did you get any bruises on her body?
Yes.
Where were they?
Everywhere.
It was enough to convince the jury.
First-degree murder as follows. Guilty. Oh, God!
Jhessye will spend the rest of her life in prison. But even a guilty verdict still didn't answer the question, where was Jhessye? Detectives Geisler and Medea feel they know with certainty where she is, even to this day.
Do you two believe Jhessye is in that landfill?
Absolutely.
Yes. Both of you?
Absolutely, yeah.
Without a doubt.
Does that mean you both believe she was in that suitcase?
Yes.
Yes.
Lisa's family feels the same.
I just believe in my mind and in my heart, in my soul, I believe she is there. That's her final resting place. We left balloons and we said our goodbyes at that landfill.
The only person who can bring this case back to light sits in a dark prison cell. The answers everyone wants may never see the light of day.
Are there any loose ends with this case still to this day, besides finding her?
Yeah, you know what? There is. The one loose end I could honestly say is I would love to hear from Jhessye just once say, this is what happened, and take responsibility, because that's never happened in this case.
Do you think it ever will?
No.
We'll be right back after the break.
You're watching a True Crime Arizona special, Vanished Children.
For much more detail on these cases, listen and subscribe to the True Crime Arizona podcast, available on all major platforms. Thanks for watching True Crime Arizona Vanished Children. I'm Brianna Whitney.